are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just relaxing after the hot mic. 2 hours of blood pressure going back and forth with Jeff Snyder there. A lot of very fun show that I do on Thursdays. So I'm excited to be back on here to talk some Star Wars with you all. Who knew we were going to have so much stuff breaking on a Thursday?
So much stuff on a Thursday.
I was listening to you guys going back and forth. So a lot of great points you both were making. So thanks for having me on.
Well, absolutely. We're glad to have you. And I haven't had a chance to be on screen with you yet. I know you've been on with Pete before, so it's great to meet you. Just in case, and before we get into all the the gritty, sweaty details, just in case, we've got a bunch of friends hanging out tonight. Just in case there's somebody here that doesn't know the Outlaw, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Oh, yeah. I've been in this space for about, I guess, 9 years now, going into 2024. Totally fell into it ass backwards thanks to Christian Harloff, who walked me into a Star Wars show. And he said, hey, man, would you want to co-host this with me and Tiffany Smith? And I was like, I'm just a regular dude. He's like, no, but I like your points of views. Come on in. Took to it like a duck to water. Christian ended up leaving the show. It was far, far away. And then Tiffany and I hosted for a while. She taught me the ropes. And then from that point, I started pitching shows, creating shows, eventually and hosting a bunch of after shows, eventually landing at Collider, doing about 3 years there, or 2 years, I guess, 2.5 years there full time, really learning the ropes from a lot of incredible people there. And then eventually we split in 2020 and I started building my own channel. And now over the last 4 years, I've been working on my own channel. I host a lot of podcasts. I host a lot of shows on the channel, things like the Jedi Way, which is our Star Wars show with Kevin Smets and Laura Kelly. But the hot mic, as I mentioned, with Jeff Snyder, the Geek Buddies that I do with my two buds, Michael Vogel and Shannon McClung, we're both animation people, writers, executives, and what have you. And then my own stuff that I do on the channel as well, whenever I get a bug up my ass about something. But one of the biggest shows that I do is the Cinephiles, which is a podcast that I host about movies. Me and my co-host, Steve Morris, who is a director and writer-director in LA, we talk about great movies every week. We're in the middle of our season of Scorsese as we're ripping through Raging Bull. We just dropped all 3 parts of Raging Bull, going scene by scene through the movie. That's kind of how our podcast is. So really proud of all the luck I've been able to do and all the work I've been able to do, rather, and being lucky enough to be able to do it with so many great people. So yeah,
there's so many great programs. And
just hearing that list of all the things makes me extra thankful that you even had 20 minutes to hang out with us tonight, because
I love you guys.
I don't know how you're able to hold still.
Yeah, so my girlfriend says the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and you're a sports guy too, so that's good to know. We just had a Around the Galaxy episode with Clinton Yates from ESPN, and
nice.
We've had Arda Ocal. He's a good friend of the show as well. So hey, we're all of the same mind. So we had a bunch of questions that we sent you earlier in the week to prepare to have a nice conversation, and then as you said, we got a couple of interesting things going on. I'm going to start. I want to throw at you.
Yeah, I
want to get your perspective on what's really happening with this Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron situation, based on your insight.
I can be a bit of a hard ass on these things, and be a little more jaded than I used to be when I was first getting into business. So you work long enough and you live in that town long enough, you start to understand how the creative's mind thinks, and it's very much about brand saving. It's very much about PR. It's very much about getting yourself in the mouths of people and in conversation. And I think Patty knew exactly what she was doing on this particular podcast. She probably did not get Lucasfilm's approval to say this stuff and just went on there. And as I don't know if you guys know wrestling terms, but she basically went into business for herself on that podcast and very much like pitched this idea, because we know that it's Matthew Robinson who is credited as a screenwriter on Rogue Squadron, and her saying, well, we got another draft to do, and then we need to feel comfortable with this before we go forward. She takes ownership of the project, even though it's very much Lucasfilms. And so I think it was a little bit of brand saving by her, a little bit of like, hey, I'm still in this thing. How are you guys excited to have me back? Let's see how you react. And maybe putting the pressure on Lucasfilm and Disney to bring her back into the project. But I think it's kind of blown up in her face, seeing some of the reactions online and on social media of this idea of her coming back to do Rogue Squadron. And there's no guarantee she's going to direct it. I think a lot of people would have an issue with that. And I think you guys were hitting some really good points about it when you were talking about it earlier.
So what you're basically saying is us talking about it and everybody else talking about it is exactly what you wanted, but there's not a lot of people saying, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think,
and I love the point you made about if she said what she said, she didn't have Lucasfilm's blessing to do that. It's a very kind of amorphous thing for her to say. And it reminds me of my favorite TV show of all time is The West Wing. And there's an episode in the first season when they go out to the Hollywood movie director's house to do a fundraiser for the president. And people keep coming up to all the president's staff members saying, hey, I can get you a job in development. And they're all going, development? What the hell is that? And they're like, I don't know, but you can develop things. You could be in development on this project. Like you could think about it. You could write about it. You could draw pictures of it. We don't know. It's a very wide view for whatever her involvement may or may not be.
Yeah, because think about it. What do you know Disney to be like, you know what, guys, just talk about our projects willy-nilly. We're not really
we give these code names for a reason.
Right. We're not hard asses about anything. Go ahead, talk about it. So no, that would not be the way to go.
There's no easier company to work with than Disney.
Yeah,
this is a fact. This is a fact. Well, and speaking of working with Disney, I hesitate to ask, but I want to kind of get your opinion because I've seen your comments and you and I tend to take a similar stance when it comes to a lot of the bullshit online. But the Gina Carano situation, if you're comfortable talking about that, sure. and her kind of, I think she's in business for herself on this stuff and doing her damnedest to try to get somebody to pay attention. And I don't think it's working for her. But what are your thoughts on the whole lawsuit situation and where that's going to end up? And
well, I mean, the lawsuit is ridiculous. It's really when you read it, and it's like when you're mentioning Alderaan in the first fucking paragraph, like I can't take this seriously. What is this? And so, the kind of infantile stupidity that you see from these MAGA people sometimes, it just is astounding. It's astounding when you see it because you're just like, wait. Did you graduate college? Or have you become a full adult? Because what you're doing here is childish stuff, and so you just see it. But it's across the board, and it's almost like they hand each other. It's like they cheat off each other's tests to act the same way in all these situations. It is constantly to play victim, victim, victim.
Yeah,
while they try to eviscerate everyone who dares to have a different point of view and so to what they're doing. And so with Gina, this is very clearly an actress, quote unquote actress, who is not getting any more work. No one's interested in her. So what she wants to do is blame Disney for her actions and blame Disney for her limited abilities as an actress, blame Disney for her not being able to find work. And it's nonsense. And having someone like Elon Musk, and I put this up on my Instagram because she said that it's great to see a billionaire who is fighting massive injustices in the world. Elon Musk yesterday fired Don Lemon from a program that he had hired him to do on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, because he asked him some hard questions about his past. And so I wrote this in Instagram. I said, these people think they're hard as rocks and they're soft as marshmallows. And that's really the thing at the end of the day. And Gina is no different. And and she does this thing, cutesy face, smiley, wink, wink. I'm just being playful. But the truth is, she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows how she's playing this. And people have said she comes from money. I don't know. I haven't researched that, but this is spoiled child behavior, what you're getting from Gina. And it's a shame because I was such a massive fan of hers in the MMA. Massive fan of hers in the MMA. And when she was on American Gladiators, I thought she was super attractive. I was like, yeah, this is a girl that is hot. I'm all into it. And then to see all this stuff come down the way it's come down, it's just a shame to see her walk this path because she never needed to walk this path. And the thing is, the yellow brick road was laid out for her. Jon Favreau was like, I'm championing you. I'm going to support you. We're going to get you into range of the New Republic. It was all laid out. So you have to ask yourself, why did she make this turn? Why did she make this decision that completely sink her career? Now she's begging to force them to put her back in it.
It makes you wonder who was in her ear and who wasn't. In a way, it's sort of like, I might put it this way. It's similar to, we talked a little bit about sports before. It's like athletes who are not surrounded by the right people and make horrible decisions, retire with no money after making millions of dollars a year. She committed to whatever she was going to say online. And again, I'm not even going to comment. I obviously I disagree with what she said, but that's not the point. The point is your boss said, chill.
Yeah. Cut it out.
And you didn't. And what she threw away is astounding to me. It's astounding. And I think you're right. She can't take credit for it. She's got to blame others on it. So,
well, and it's interesting to see, like, if part of what you're asking for in a lawsuit like this is I want to come back, like that's recognition she knows what she threw away.
Exactly.
Like, the opportunity. I mean, for God's sakes, Rangers of the New Republic, that was supposed to be a project for her. Like,
her
we
show.
had things set, it was laid out in front of her, and there has to be a little bit of, oh shit, I messed this up. Like, driving into that, 100%.
Because here's the truth. Ben Shapiro is only about Ben Shapiro. And so you go and work for him, you are working in servitude to him. And no matter what he says out there in the public, behind the scenes, it's very clear it's about him. That Western trailer, I almost did a trailer reaction to laugh through the trailer reaction, which I don't usually like to be cruel like that, but I want to, because I'm the outlaw of the Westerns. This is my thing.
Yeah.
See it being terribly portrayed like it was in that movie. It just tells you she's desperate for work. It's very clear. And now she's trying to backtrack on all this stuff. And I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to follow that line for a minute, because you are a critic, you review things, you do trailer, all that stuff. There is a fine line between being a critic and a fan.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How does it manifest? Certainly in, being critical of something you love, like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever the things are that you're truly passionate about. Pete and I are the same way. Like, we feel like we've landed in a place where we go, if it's not for me, that's fine. I'm glad to move on. I don't have to set a couch on fire in my front yard and be pissed about it. But, you do this even more than we do. How does that, where does that shake out for you? Where's the line?
Well, it's a good question. I try to take it on a case-by-case basis, and I'm very clear on the things that disappoint me. I'm very clear on speaking about it. Like Killers of the Flower Moon is a great example. Like, that was a film. I did 2 trailer reactions to that film. I cried through both of those trailer reactions on camera. I had someone who is married to a family member of Martin Scorsese DM me and tell me that he had shown my reactions to Martin Scorsese.
Wow.
And that he had been moved by them. And I was so looking forward to seeing this movie. And then when I saw the movie and was disappointed by the film or the decisions made in the back half of the film, I was so upset, because I was like, how could you make this colossal mistake? And I said that in my reviews, and I said that in my retort. So I try to be very fair, and I try to be honest, and I try to be clear, so that I don't play favorites and I don't fall on one side or the other. But I always try to be respectful in my delivery. So like anything else, I'm not going to favor friends or family over strangers simply because they're friends or family. If it's an equal, it's always equal when I try to do it. And so I try to be clear about that. But I go the route you guys go as well. If people like something, I'm never going to tell them not to like something.
Correct.
Because Lord knows I like those Transformers movies and everybody hates them. So we all have that thing.
Oh, wait, you like those? You're not a real fan. You're a
fake fan.
Get out, sir. But you have that. But that's what makes us all film fans, though, isn't it? It's because we all have our quote unquote guilty pleasures. We all have our things we love that no one else loves, and they just appeal to us because of how we're built as human beings. So to tell someone not to like something, I think, is unfair. Even Madam Web,
Yeah. Well, and we've taken on this show, probably individually, even before Pete and I teamed up, we took the position of, you're allowed to not like something. You don't have to be an asshole about it. Like, that's where the line is. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, there are things I don't. Resistance? I'm sure Resistance is great. I've tried to watch it 4 times and I haven't gotten past the 3rd episode. It's not for me, but I'm not angry about it. I'm not telling somebody else they're wrong for liking it. I just go, cool. I don't have to watch that. I love Rebels. I'll watch Rebels till I fall out of my chair, but somebody else is going to disagree with me. But guess what? I don't have to be a jerk about it. Neither do they.
Wait till you watch Young Jedi Adventures. Let's see if you stick around for those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting, and we've talked about it before, and it's not to keep harping on this sort of situation, but I'm very, you've been successful by being positive, but also being very real with your attitude. We end up in a situation where people are now making a living on Star Wars shit takes, and that's not only frustrating. I mean, I'm not. People are like, you're just jealous because that guy's got 3 million subscribers. I'm not jealous. I'm pissed off, honestly, that he's using that platform, whoever the he is in this case, platform for just being negative. The question that I have for you, and I know how you feel about it as a as a practice, because we're humans and we're decent humans, but what does that do to a fandom? I mean, whether it's the wrestling fandom or the Star Trek fandom or the Star Wars fandom, what's the impact?
Well, I think it becomes a corrosive element of the fandom because the criticism is not inherently honest. Yep. Therefore, because once you create a toxic fan base, it must always be fed its red meat. Mm-hmm. And you must always find this red meat or they'll stop watching you. And if they stop watching you, they'll stop patronizing your sponsors. And if they stop patronizing your sponsors, you're not going to have a show anymore. And you're not going to have a fandom anymore. So to me, I think it's a devil's bargain that these people make with these decisions. And look, everyone's got a right to earn their money in America or wherever they're at. You got to get your bag. I get it. But by the same token, it doesn't mean you're excluded from criticism. And I've had them send their people after me. I've had them get upset when I told them to find their balls a few weeks ago about Charmin Obey-Chinoy. And they all tagged me in their shit. Then they got mad that I blocked them because I'm like, I don't want toxicity today. I don't want toxicity today. Because I could give a fuck. I really could give a fuck. Sell your calendars, sell all your shit and your merch. That's fine. Use me for the material because you need something to feed your rabid masses. Knock yourself out. But to me, at the end of the day, you're just allowing a lot of negative toxicity to course, not through the fandom, but through yourself. And I don't think that leads to a happy life in the long run, no matter how many people you surround yourself who are going to cackle and say mean shit all over, like themselves and and then just, support each other saying mean or laughing at people or whatever. And I've seen some people make the turn, and the people to me that I've seen make the turn because they want to make money. And it's a shame to see that. Certainly a high-pitched friend of mine who I saw make the turn has really surprised me because that guy used to beg for so many things and complain about so many things and in ways of wanting to be part of things. And now seeing him go the route that he went, it's a shame to see. But, that was the decision he made to make money. And I can't fault him for wanting to make money, but I will call out the toxicity that I see from so many of these people because they're not invested in making something better because if they were, they wouldn't constantly complain when certain things change. Like even if Star Wars was to make a decision to go in a certain direction, they'd have to have problems with Star Wars making that decision to go that direction. Even if it was the direction they told them to take, well, they're just doing that now to appease us. And so it's just a constant state of anger and don't excuse my passion.
No,
anger. I'm just passionate.
No, and I want to. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I was just gonna add. I always remember and think back to showing my age. I remember when Rush Limbaugh said the best thing that ever happened to him was Bill Clinton being reelected. It wasn't. It was. He didn't want it to happen according to what he was saying, but by happening, it sure helped him out quite a bit.
Right. Well, and I want to follow the thread you talked about. Not being afraid to call somebody out. We've had this conversation. Pete and I have had it individually. Kyle Katarn was on with us a few weeks ago, and he said the same thing.
Love Kyle.
Kyle's great. And we've talked about this idea of sometimes when you call it out, somebody comes in and goes, but you're giving them a platform by calling them out. But the reality is you have an audience. Pete has a large audience. Kyle has a large audience. Like it almost feels like there is a responsibility to go, I have a larger voice. So I should say something. Where do you come down on that?
Oh, I think you should absolutely say something if you want to say something and if you can deal with the backlash. That's the thing. Like I've had a couple of YouTubers reach out to me on DMs after the Charmin Obey-Chinoy incident, and then they were like, how do you deal with this? And I'm like, this is the game. If you're going to speak out loud and you're going to be opinionated, you've got to expect a backlash, and you've got to be sure you can handle the backlash. It's not easy. When I made that comment about Andor a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, when I was basically trying to say I'd like a lot of these white-led Star Wars shows to start inviting people of color on to speak about the Andor show because it's very much focused on people of color leading that show in terms of Diego Luna. And so, and it's very much the immigrant experience being colonized. I just wanted that, but I worded my tweet incorrectly. The hate I got was so massive that there was a night or two where I was just like, what's the point of this? And so I really had to have a conversation with myself of like, well, if I keep going, and I took the tweet down because I'm like, I don't want to, keep having people misunderstand what I was saying. Because even I had some friends of mine reach out and be like, "Wait, are you saying I can't talk about Star Wars?" And I was like, "Clearly, I misstated." So I took the tweet down out of respect for them and what have you. But I had to have that conversation. And so once I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna say my piece, which is why I said my piece with Charmaine Obey-Chenoid stuff. And I will say my piece again down the road. I don't need to name them because they will find it. And so I don't need to name them. But I do think if people want to name them, I think they should and have every right to do so, because they will name you if they feel like it. And you just have to be ready to handle the backlash. And I do think, though, I'll say this, guys, I do sense that it's changing. I sense that the wave now is pushing back on these crybaby anti-woke people, that the wave is pushing back farther and farther and pushing them away because people are kind of getting done and sick of toxicity.
Yeah.
And they're leaving the anger behind and they just want to enjoy things again. And I think that's what we're seeing now recently. And I think they sense it too, which is why they're becoming crazier and crazier with some of their takes and angrier and angrier with some of their takes, because they see that their money is getting affected by the pushback,
Right. Well, we're coming up to the edge of our time. If you have 1 second, I want to ask you one more question, because I think there's a lot of, we do end up getting kind of as fans, as people in this space, we do get kind of sucked into these conversations about the toxicity because it hurts us because we're fans. But what do you think the future is? We'll end with this. What do you think the future is for Star Wars? Is it in the movie theaters? Is it in streaming? What does it look like? Because the world has, since you and I first spoke, it was right around the time I think Mandalorian came out. Or shortly after that. So it's been a long time, John. It's been too long. But we're trying to evaluate then, because we were in the middle of pandemic. What does it look like now? Pandemic is behind us for the most part. What's Star Wars future look like?
I think it has to be theatrically. I think that's where we go. We can't. Star Wars was built on the communal experience of being in the theater and experiencing these movies. Now, did some of us discover them for the first time on TV at home? Sure. Most of the time with our families, though, right? So it's always been a communal experience. And I think if they start to focus more on just the TV stuff and not really work on putting out some great films that people will be re-inspired by, because that's what Star Wars does. It inspires a lot of people. That's at its core. It's its best. It's an inspirational franchise. Then I think they're going to lose the plot of this franchise once and for all. And I've defended Kathleen for years because I'm like, look, it's making $6 billion. Whether the creative decisions are correct or not is a separate conversation. She's still making a lot of money on this franchise, and that's important. So, but where it all lives and breathes is all of us in a theater being taken into a galaxy far, far away and experiencing those emotional, inspirational, tragic, life-changing moments together. And Star Wars has always done that. I think that's why so many people love the franchise the way they do, because it spoke to them as in their formative years, and it gave them inspiration to pursue and dream and hope, a new hope. And I love that's the element of Star Wars. So I think if they don't fix the theatrical thing, and it has to be there, foundationally there, I think Star Wars is headed towards a slow death, and nobody wants that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's great. Well, speaking of movies, speaking of theaters, tell people one more time where they can find you and where they can keep it, for those that may not, for whatever reason, have found you at this point.
If you like my passionate, long-winded approach to the world, please come find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram. The Outlaw Nation on Twitch. I'm starting to get back up onto Twitch again. Bought a few games. Got a new PS5, so I'm starting to do some stuff there. And my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. We are small, but we are mighty, marching towards 50,000 subscribers. We'd love for y'all to come aboard and check out the shows, the trailer reactions, the reviews, and just me being upset about something or being happy about something for an hour or so on the nation. So come and check me out there, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. I appreciate it. And gentlemen, thank you very much for having me on. Always love seeing you guys.
John, this was great. Thank you so much.